Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. And I've got Les Jensen here with me today. And, Les was the first person that ever visited my show on High Road to Humanity. And so it's really exciting to have him back again today. And today we're going to be talking about his new book. Well, actually, it's been out for a little bit, but I hadn't read it yet. It's called Citizen King, and it's the new age of power. And I'm so excited to have him here today. And before I bring him on, let me give you a little bit of information if you don't know about Les Jensen. He is an author, he is a radio host, a speaker, an energy master, and a visionary. And Les was born in a Mormon household in Brigham City, Utah. He was the last of 7 children. And I guess this situation allowed him significant freedom to explore his strong sense of independence and to indulge his curiosity around the world around him and how it worked and the people within it. So it says his technology skills eventually led to a very successful career in engineering in the broadcast industry. And it was here that he experienced a spiritual awakening. He hadn't had a spiritual notion of himself before that, but decades of studying the nature of frequency, energy, and very high levels of power in television had prepared him for working with the energy of human consciousness. And he's written a couple really great books. One book, and I've had him on the show already, was Forgiven Sinner, and that's what it looks like. I'm holding it up so you guys can see. And the other book that we're going to talk about today that he's written, which was amazing, by the way, is Citizen King. And before I bring him on, I'm just going to read a quick paragraph out of Citizen King, The New Age of Power. And this is about all of us coming into our own power. And so here we go. Sit back and relax. And here we go. It's chapter 1, To Be a King. The lights come down, the theater's filled to capacity. The movie's about to start, and you settle in, getting comfortable in your seat as you anticipate the wonderful story that is about to begin. It's the story of the life of a king. The story starts in the 1800s, not that long ago. It was a time when we had a clear idea of what being a king was all about. The old idea of a king as a person empowered to choose whatever he wanted. The king had no one to challenge his authority. He had the authority to take actions on his own, having dominion over others. However, the citizen king concept of being a king is quite different than the stories of yore, for it is really the story of mastering the possibilities of life itself. A personal triumph of sorts. But before we go down that road and embark upon this path, let's bring to the discussion the concept of the budding king, the king that is in you now. Hey, Les, welcome to High Road to Humanity.
Hey, thank you for having me on the show. It's so nice to be back.
It's nice to see you. Everybody's going to have to bear with me. I'm a little under the weather today, but I can still talk pretty well. I want to talk to you about this book. I just want to know something right off the bat. How'd you figure all this stuff out, Les? Because it's pretty brilliant, what I've read here.
Well, I have to blame it on my childhood. It's, I think my soul chose my life path, that I start off in a household where all the questions were already answered for me. Yeah. My childhood was, you could very much think of it as a Twilight episode, okay. Because I lived in a small town in Utah, and Mormonism was easily 95% of the town.
Right.
And so I could go talk to the butcher at the store, or the traffic cop, or my teacher at school, and they'd all give me the same answer for everything.
Oh, because they were all programmed that way.
Yeah, that's right. And so it's like, do any of you have a personal opinion? I mean, all I'm hearing is this repetitive parrot talk.
Right.
And I think my soul chose that to really awaken a fire in me to know a deeper truth. It's like, imagine being told that the stove is hot. The stove is hot. Mm-hmm. But you want to know for yourself at some point. Why am I avoiding the stove except because somebody told me to?
Mm-hmm. No, I'm with you. I'm with you exactly. Well, you say to be a king. This is so great. I really love this book. You have to understand creation. So, and you have to understand that we are creators, right? That's the beginning of this whole thing, the energy that we put out.
Sure. Well, if you look at the momentum of humanity, if you will, the institutions, be they academic or religious or whatever,
Right.
they're really not solving any problems. One nice thing about working in television for so many decades is I watched basically a daily report from all over the world, i.e., a newscast
Okay.
about what was going on in humanity. And over decades, the story never changed. Let me guess, we're at war somewhere. We're blowing
Right.
up people. There's
Yeah.
financial crisis. There's,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and so there had to be a missing element, if
Right.
you will.
Right.
So that's what inspired writing the book.
Well, but you've learned all this stuff too, because, and I want to talk to the audience about it so they understand it as well. You know, you guys, what we're telling you is that whatever you think and whatever you feel is what creates your reality. Because we're little creators, and you talk about that so much in the book, and you talk about how we are creating our own, like we're all just in a play. I love that because I kind of wrote that, I think I wrote that in my book too. We're all in this play and we're just acting it out, right?
Yeah, well, indeed. And it's transcending the story of the past. It's like cleaning your eyes off so you can see reality with virgin eyes, because I suggest that what's going to transform our human condition is the humans. It's when we afford ourselves the permission, the sovereignty to be inspired from the inside,
Right,
from the passion of our heart and the
right,
compassion of our soul,
right.
that we will be the birth of the new paradigm, of the new dynamic.
And I agree with that wholeheartedly. You know, and we're going to talk about that. I wrote down tons of questions for you today. And you talk about our heart and our soul, and it's got to come, the flow has got to come from our heart and our soul, not our head, which is more of the ego. Yes.
Well, yeah, the ego wants to make a choice where it knows what the outcome is going to be. And so it bases its choices on what has worked in the past. And that pretty much locks it down to repeat the
Right.
pattern of the past. So the heart and the soul is what'll free us from that prison.
Right. No, I'm thinking about what you talked about growing up, and I can think about when I grew up, it was a certain way. You know, my parents were a certain way, and I learned that way. And it wasn't until I got older, I can relate to your story a little bit, that I kind of got out on my own and realized, well, everybody doesn't think like that, and then started to be more open to other possibilities. Is that kind of what happened with you?
Well, sure. I wanted to know the why behind the answers, if you will. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times, there wasn't a why there. I mean, people really wanted you to just get in line and
That's it.
goose step
Yeah.
the momentum of the culture.
Right.
And humanity's been through the ringer, and the human heart is really hungry for a more authentic story,
Right.
and it's going to be birthed from within us. So a lot of the passion behind my books and my radio show and whatnot is what the hell. I mean, there's got to be a deeper truth that has
Mm-hmm.
eluded us over the years.
Well, yeah, and you say change your story. This is so interesting to me because I'm into all this just like you are. And I've learned that I have to come from the heart. I may be getting ahead of myself on this conversation a little bit, but I know you have to come from the heart and you have to start to think from the heart. How did you learn to think from your heart instead of your head?
Wow. It
Yeah, see, that's where I'm at, Les.
it wasn't obvious at first. For example, me becoming an author.
Right.
I mean, I'm a small town kid from Utah. Who the hell wants to hear what I have to say?
Well, a lot, I
And
do.
well, in the beginning, my heart is like, write a book. I'm like, write a book. My
Yeah,
ego is arguing with my heart, write a
right,
book. I'm like,
right.
yeah, come on, write a book. And my first book took 6 years.
Wow.
And I clicked publish, and I was kind of scared. I was kind of afraid. My
Hmm.
second book took 6 months.
Right, because you learned how to do it.
But I think my ego learned wonderful it feels when you fulfill the inspiration that your heart is feeding you.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting because most people say, get away from the ego, get away from the ego, but you don't. You say come from the heart, and that's how you, I don't know what the word is, that's how you make your ego work along with your heart, is what you're saying, right?
Well, there's some hardcore freedom, and once you've tasted that freedom of letting your heart drive and your soul
Right,
drive,
right.
there's a really deep sense of freedom and satisfaction that the ego can't create on its own. And once you've tasted that fruit enough to trust it, then the path of your whole life changes.
Right. And I think that, honestly, you were the first one on my show a year ago when I started this. And I have come, I'm going to tell you this because it's nice to see you and it's nice to talk to you. And I've come full circle because it's interesting to have you back on. And I've learned through this last year with all the different people that I've had on that you have to think with your heart. And that's what I've learned. It's been the most inspiring thing for me. And of course, to go with inside yourself and stop looking outside yourself.
Oh yeah. And
Hmm.
and um there's a cleansing, if you will, because we have a momentum. We have a,
Right.
a karmic momentum as a human being. We have habitual mental patterns and we have emotional posturing.
And we have to change that, change our
We
story.
it's a choice, but when we choose to do that, the dynamic of our life expands.
Listen, we've got about 1 minute to break, and but I'm wondering when we come back if you'll talk to us about how to change that story because we get this story stuck in our head, and it comes from childhood, it comes from growing up, and it's hard to change your story. And so I was hoping that maybe when we come back, you can tell the audience like how to do that because that's something you get information in your head and you have to stop it and change the story is what I think you have to do. Anyway, so we're here today, you guys, with Les Jensen, and the book we're discussing today is called Citizen King, The Age of Power. And Les, where do people find your book?
You can get it at Amazon.com, and any brick and mortar bookstore should be able to order it for you.
Cool. And if you're watching me on video, this is what it looks like. It's called Citizen King, The New Age of Power by Les Jensen. This is Nancy Yearout, your host, and we'll be right back. Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and we're here today with Les Jensen talking about Citizen King, The New Age of Power. And Les, before we went to break, I was asking you, how do you change your story? How do you change that story that goes on in your head?
Well, if you've never given that any consideration, it can take perhaps a little bit of courage
Right.
because we invariably create a safe zone, a safe way of living.
Mm-hmm.
And an easy thing to do, an easy takeaway from this is get some post-it notes.
Okay.
And typically you'll be doing something else. You'll be unloading the groceries from the car, doing the dishes, whatever, and a single sentence will pop in your head. Hey, why don't you write a book? Now stop and write that down on the post-it note.
Okay.
Because if you don't write it down, your mind, your ego will argue and discount
Talk you out of it.
who am I to write a book?
Yeah.
And so just by putting ink on paper, you give it some permanence in your environment. And
I
the
love
next
that.
morning you see it and you add a sentence later. And this is like cracking open the space of your busy mind and allowing your heart to get some room.
I learned from one of my guests to put your hands over your heart and do a heart drop. Have you heard of this, Les? Where they
Sure.
do a heart drop and you ask a question from your heart. I've been doing that where if I really want to know something, because your body doesn't lie, I put my hand on my heart and I ask my heart. Now I have a question for you. Do you do that, or are you to the point where you just think with your heart now?
I think I've bought into the idea that my heart is so much smarter than my mind.
Right, right, right. So do you do that heart drop, or how do you do it?
um, I listen to the sentences that I'm speaking,
Okay.
and and if it's like my heart will interrupt my thinking and say, well, that's not, time
Mm-hmm.
out, that's not getting us anywhere, slow down. And after a while, um, it's almost like your ego is channeling your heart, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Where you kind of you quiet your ego down and just sit still and wait for the inspiration moment to moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not like your ego has to figure it out. I don't think your ego was ever smart enough to figure out your potential,
Right.
because again, your ego is so vested in repeating the patterns that have kept it safe, and
I think, yeah,
that's a
that's it.
prison of sorts.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk about creating heaven on earth, and you say, and I agree with this because, and that's what the Bible says, there will be heaven on earth. So basically, once we all get to a point where we can go within, think with our heart, then we can start to create our own, what we'd like to have. And we can do that.
Oh yeah. Well, love, love, the power play. Love will kick your ass in such a beautiful, wonderful way if you let go enough for it to happen.
Now, when you
Uh,
say let go enough, what do you mean?
well, love is very powerful, and love doesn't want a posture or an opinion. Love
Hmm.
can't live in judgment.
Right.
So to embody heaven is to be able to love all that is just as it is
Right.
in this moment,
Right.
and not seek to correct or project an expectation, but just to look at what is happening from the place of love. When you can embody love for all that is, you're literally becoming a portal, a personification of heaven on earth.
Right. Well, we can't judge. And when I know growing up, everybody was judgy. People are still judgy.
For
And if,
sure.
so you have to get, so I've learned that too. And I'm kind of going to the end of my notes here because yeah, got a little bit ahead of me there, Les. But the thing is, unconditional love, the universe has no bias. You say the keys are in your heart. I love that because the key is in our heart. And that's where we connect to the divine. And that's why the heart doesn't lie. Right.
Sure. It's um learn to love the face of humanity, if you will, of all of
Right.
humanity. See,
Right.
we're very, very powerful souls in the sense that we've allowed ourselves to create a karmic tsunami. I
Yeah,
mean,
talk about that because talk about karma because you address that in the book. Talk about that.
well, karma is we as souls chose to go into the darkness, to go into separation, to go in forgetting who we really are. And that was eons ago, eons of time. And we created war and so much suffering, humanity suffering at the hand of humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the uh, how do I do this quickly? If the entire earth was filled with Jesuses, where
Right.
everyone was in unconditional love, there would be no lesson to learn
Right.
about how to love. We would all be love embodied. But a calm sea never made a skilled sailor. And
Okay.
so to incarnate on this planet, a karmic tsunami, where the vast majority of humanity has no notion of the truth of who they are,
Right.
and then to be able to discover your truth within the darkness, within the
Mm-hmm.
shadow,
Mm-hmm.
and then personify love in that is raw power. That
Got it.
is an old soul mastering the ability to love even the darkest of the shadow.
So you think, and I just want to get this clear. You think we all the reason we're here, I do too, is to learn. And if we didn't have all this negativity, then we wouldn't know the positive. And so we're here to grow as souls, and we're here to find ourselves within, and we're here to learn that we can't be judgmental of each other. We have to love people for who they are because they're living out their story. Yes.
Well, sure, like a homeless person, perhaps.
Right.
Uh, um, you don't go from a new soul so far into the darkness that you have that kind of an experience. People who are living in such destitution are advanced souls who've chosen to so disconnect from their truth that it the challenge, the lessons are immense and in many ways very difficult. But to master that, to come from the edge of the shadow and make your way back, that's triumphant. That's a modality of how we're going to heal the human story, is to
Right.
overcome the shadow.
Well, yeah, because I remember going to Mexico years ago and seeing the little kids and the people, and they were so happy and they had nothing, but they were happier than
Right.
the
Yes.
people that I saw. So
Yes.
that made and that was probably 15, 20 years ago. I saw that, and that was a real aha moment for me, because I realized that the more we have material wise, uh, the less, it seems like the less spiritual we are. We start to look at for the outside instead of the inside. But when you don't have as much, you start to think differently and you see things differently.
Well, happiness, or perhaps heaven, and the opposite, hell, are both potentials today. I mean, you don't have to wait until you've ascended into unconditional love. You can enjoy every step of the journey. You can, in fact, I suggest the whole idea is to master the ability to enjoy today, even
Right.
though you haven't accomplished perhaps what your ego wants your life to be.
But if we
So,
enjoy every moment, and that's why they say live in the now, because if you live in the now and you enjoy now, then you put that energy out and that's what comes back and it creates more, correct?
well, sure. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no end to the race. It's like if you wait till you arrive at heaven to enjoy heaven.
It's too
Um,
late. You should have enjoyed it while you were here.
that's right.
Okay.
It's right here, right now. Even if your life looks challenging and difficult, say, "Oh my God, I came here for some really big lessons. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
God, I'm
Mm-hmm.
a really old soul that came here to master the illusion of separation and the notion that I am disconnected from my power." Wow. Wow. How wonderful you are to have chosen such a challenging path.
Right. So we are very powerful people and we have the ability to create. How do you think that got lost, Les?
Um, the attention we put outside of ourselves. When we look at our environment, our ego tends to quantify everything. Well, I want a better house. I want a better job.
But
And
that doesn't fulfill the soul.
it doesn't. And
And
you
that's what
know,
most people find out as they get a little bit older. I don't mean to interrupt you there, but I
no,
feel like,
no.
yeah, I feel like people as they get older, they start to realize it's not about the stuff. Well, at least I have anyway. I realized it a while ago. But a lot of people are still into, whoever has the most toys wins.
Well, if you when you write down that inspiration on those post-it notes, and
Right,
then you take a step, not accomplish, not finish, but just take a steps towards fulfilling that.
right.
Hey, you should write a book. And so on any particular day, you sit down, you open up a word processor, and you start writing the book. At the end of that day, your heart feels satisfied. Your
Right. Because you
soul
fulfilled.
feels fulfilled. But
Right.
if your
Right.
ego doesn't ever follow that inspiration, your heart and your soul are kind of
Empty.
melancholy.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. Hey, listen, we're getting ready to go to break again. When we come back, I want to talk more about this. I really enjoyed your book. You guys, it's called Citizen King. I'm here with Les Jensen today, The New Age of Power. This is Nancy You're Out, your host, and we will be right back. Hi, it's Nancy Yearout, and welcome to High Road to Humanity. We're back here with Les Jensen. We're talking about your heart. We're talking about our soul. And I wrote something down here, Les. It says, the key to being a king in your kingdom is to be able to embody the exact vibration of your inspiration, is to bring it into reality and present it to the universe as the mirror that it is, without flaw or distortion. So we're mirroring. Can you talk about that?
Well, sure. So, say your desire is to have a more loving relationship,
Right.
and you got a big ass chip on your shoulder, and you're angry about lots of stuff. Road rage might be a common experience for you. So, your prayer is to have more love in your in your relationship.
Okay.
Well, in order to embody that love, you have to let go of the anger,
Right.
anything that's incongruent with that. Because the
Okay.
quantum field, for myself, I really, my awakening, my proverbial cosmic 2x4, was I had so much anger in my subconscious and I didn't know it. And the quantum field, the universe mirrored that back to me. And it wasn't, excuse me, until I could release, and very, very important, release the pent up, unexpressed emotions,
Mm-hmm.
allowed me to purify my energy and have a more consistent energetic image, if
How
you
did you get
will.
rid of it, though? I think you told me this before. How did you get rid of that anger?
I quit suppressing it and I gave myself permission to feel it and release it. And it was scary at first. Anger, I had never allowed myself to feel anger, and when it came up, I was really, my ego was scared to death of it.
Mm-hmm.
But the first time was so challenging and unexpected. But after I gave myself more and more permission, it turns out anger is pure raw fuel. Anger is a gift in a lot of ways.
Because
A
it
lot,
pushes you to do something.
well, it's showing you where you're incongruent with yourself. It's showing you what you don't desire about your life, and it's raw energy. So you can take that anger, the energy of anger,
Mm-hmm.
and channel it into transforming yourself.
I
The, the
see.
the notion that spiritual people never allow themselves to feel angry, I think you're missing a big element there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. No, I'm with you. So, because you say your heart is like a high power amplifier broadcasting the inspiration of the soul. I really like that. It all comes from the heart, and we've really lost that.
Well, your heart's a very, very powerful part of your persona,
Right.
and the ego's not really that interested in learning about being powerful, because powerful means new paradigms. Powerful means dramatic change. And again, the ego is really vested in keeping in that safe spot. So
Mm-hmm.
it can be courageous for to teach your ego to stand down and take a step back and let the intention of your heart have more of a say, have more of a sway in your everyday life. And
Right.
the more you're able to do that, the more fulfilled you'll feel today, the more
Right.
joy you'll feel today.
And it's so interesting because, people, when you grow up, people teach you to think with your head. Nobody ever says think with your heart. Nobody ever does until you get older and then you start reading this stuff and you start checking this stuff out. And then you're like, oh, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, sure. Oh
I mean,
my
nobody
God,
ever
yes.
says that. Nobody ever, like when I was a kid, nobody said, well, what does your heart think? Use your brain. I always heard, use your brain. That's what God gave you a brain for. Use that.
Well, yeah, I mean, it it's a
It's true, isn't it? How we function. We function wrong. We need to teach people how to think with their heart. I really love this book, Les, because that's what this is, the bottom line, huh?
yes, indeed.
Mm-hmm.
If we give our heart and our soul a presence, a prominence in our life, collectively, our future has to change.
Right,
There's no other choice. And
right.
humanity is really hungry for a more authentic story, a more authentic nurturing view of the future.
Right.
And our heart and our soul can totally nail that. And our ego, not so much. So,
Well, I see a split right now. I'm just going to tell you what I see. I see people who are into stuff or even more into stuff than ever. And I see maybe the other half is kind of like, wait a minute, it's not about the stuff. And they're starting to find themselves. So I do see a split right now. Do you?
sure, the humanity as a whole is really waking up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the metaphysical or spiritual movement, if you
Mm-hmm.
will start showing the disparity of the mindset of our past and the
Right.
potentials of our future.
Right.
And people are fed up. Their BS detector is starting to get honed,
Yeah.
and our heart and our soul can language without tripping that BS detector, because um, our heart and our soul is a connection with our own authentic truth.
Right. So people are feeling that this isn't right and that we need to make a change.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so too. You talk about take action to your dreams. Everybody has dreams, and I love how you say, think about heaven on earth. What would you like heaven on earth? If it was heaven on earth, what would it be? And I start thinking about that. What would I conjure up? And that's what you have to do in order to create what your dreams are, right?
Indeed. The old notion of heaven is some kind of a static template
Yeah.
that religion would say, well, behave this way. And that's blasphemy, really, to the creative impulse of humanity. There's 7 billion flavors of what heaven is on the planet. So
Right.
when you give yourself the permission to daydream, what would heaven look like for me? Well, I really like to create. So I have the vehicle of creation at hand every day when I wake up.
Right.
I mean, I'm seeding, I'm birthing
Right.
the
Planting the
idea.
seeds. Right.
That's
Right.
right. And if I never give myself permission to daydream, what would the perfect life look for me? I'm never giving myself the permission to daydream what heaven would look like for me.
Right. A lot of people don't do it. They just get up every day and they go through the motions. But if you
Yes.
actually stop and think, okay, what would heaven look like, and start to create that in your mind, I like that, because in the sticky notes, because then it changes things for you, and it changes so that you are creating what your heaven is on earth.
Oh, indeed. And
Yeah.
in truth, we're very powerful. Every
I
one of us
know. I
is
know.
so very powerful.
Why now? That's another. Well, I know you don't have all the answers, Les, but why do you think we all? I mean, we're such powerful people, but then we tend to not think of ourselves as powerful. I just wonder how that got all mixed up. Because we have the ability. We're little creators. We're little gods. We can create anything we want. I've learned how to do it. Sometimes I'm better than others, like you. I'm still working on it. But how did we get to this point? It seems like we have this magical ability.
Well, we were really tormented for being powerful in the past. I mean, if you showed your power in the past, you were labeled
A witch.
blasphemous, and
Yeah.
yeah, and burned at the town square.
I was
And
probably burned or something, less.
yeah, I'm no suckologist, but that would really suck. And
Yeah.
and
And so
and
people stop using their power.
that's right. And so when you go to get your power back out, it's like, wow, do I really want to go down this road? And it takes some soul searching. I mean,
Hmm.
and there's no requirements. We're given fierce
Free. Yeah.
freedom
Yeah.
to choose to stay dormant, or choose to open up a little, or choose to open up a lot.
Right. Well, I
And
want to address really quick about our power, because and I always say this to my kids. Well, they're older now, but I used to tell them when they were younger, you can use your power for good or evil. And that's what people do. We all have the same power. Some people use it for good, but some people use it for evil. And it's the same power. It's whatever the universe knows what you want, and it just gives it to you.
sure, and we have to come to terms with our potential in order for us to really know what we want. It's not an automatic thing. It comes through experience. Like,
Hmm.
sometimes you'll think, well, I want this or I want that, and once you get it, you still feel empty.
Right.
But had you not gone through that, you wouldn't have as much clarity that you gain through the process. So,
Mhm.
so the shadow, the idea of legislating righteousness or legislating morality is a bit of a faux pas, because in order to be powerful, we can't posture with our choices. We have to know that we have the power of quote good and quote bad within all of us. And
Right.
when we recognize that we have the potential for the undesired, when we see people who are choosing the undesired, we can identify with them that we too have that same potential.
Right.
And so it's not it we don't serve ourselves when we label something blasphemous and then
Right. No judgment. Don't judge
posture.
it.
Well, the posture is what collapses our potential. Anytime you posture, you're creating a standing wave of energy
Okay.
that collapses choices for you and really binds your freedom.
So you're saying if you dig your heels in on something and you won't give, is that what you're saying?
That's right. Whatever you resist persists.
Persists.
Yes.
I see. So you just got to let go. So
Well,
hard. That's why they say let go, let God, huh?
to learn to love all that is
Right.
on this planet, we're given
Right.
the freedom to destroy ourselves. I mean, my first impulse is yuck, but without that freedom, we wouldn't have total freedom.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So here we're given an immense power, and what comes with that power is the ability to create darkness from it. Otherwise, it
Right.
would not be powerful
Right.
if we
No, I'm
didn't
with
have
you.
that choice.
Yeah, I'm with you. Hey, we're getting ready to go to break. We got about 30 seconds. You guys, I'm here with Les Jensen. We could talk probably for a couple hours, Les and I.
No
His book is
problem.
called his book is called Citizen King: The New Age of Power. I'm holding it up here if you're watching me on YouTube today. If you can get it at Amazon.com or any of your brick and mortar stores. Les, what's your website?
Newhumanliving.com.
Oh, I like that.
Yes.
Newhumanliving.com. All right. We're here with Les Jensen. This is Nancy Yearout, your host, and we'll be right back. Hi, this is Nancy Yearout, and welcome back to High Road to Humanity. This is our last segment. Gosh, this has gone really quick today, Les. Thanks for talking to me about everything. One thing I wanted to talk about was forgiveness and compassion. That's what I'm working on lately is compassion, because that's kind of the key. You have to be compassionate with other people or to other people. You can't judge.
When you learn to forgive yourself and recognize that whatever you're forgiving yourself for, you didn't have the wherewithal to make a different decision in the moment. When you
Okay.
forgive yourself of that ignorance,
Okay.
then it brings you freedom, if you will. And the more you learn to forgive yourself, when you see other people that have lost the ability to choose, you recognize that there's an element of not knowing. um
You mean ignorance just because you haven't
yeah,
figured it out
well,
yet?
yeah. And so when you saw that you've done that yourself,
Yeah.
the more you can forgive yourself, the harder it is to hold others in judgment.
Yeah, that's true. Because if you can't, then they always say that God forgives us because we're his children. And you know the way I look at it, I'm going to tell you this. I look at it as I think of my kids. And no matter what they do, I still love them because they're my kids. And that's
Right.
how I think God looks at us. That's how I can relate to it because we're his children. And so he doesn't judge us, just like we don't judge our kids. We still love them unconditionally.
Right.
Yeah.
And they have to learn. They have to make mistakes to
Right.
know who they are.
To
So
figure it out. It just is a hard thing. Here's the thing. I would love for us to start teaching our little children these principles. We need to start teaching our children when they're young that they're loved and that to be kind to people and to be compassionate and to think with their heart. That would change things, wouldn't it?
And I think they're probably poised to do it in a much easier way
Yeah.
when they're young because they haven't learned
They haven't been like
embodied
a pattern.
the
Yeah.
stigma. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Well, because the unit, and you say this in the book, the universe has no bias. The keys are in your heart. I love that so much. And but we've got to change some of that imprinting that we got from growing up.
Well, we have free agency, so we don't have to change that imprinting. But when we choose to, we're choosing the new paradigm. We're choosing the more authentic story.
And when you do that, then people fall away from you in your life because you're different.
A lot of times, if you don't stay in the dogma, people in the dogma don't want to relate to you
I
because
know.
it's that place of comfort. It's amazing, like a woman living in domestic violence
Right.
will go see a counselor, and the counselor will say, "Hey, you can not go home right now," and they'll go back because that's what they know.
It's
It's it's
comfort zone.
it's amazing.
Okay.
I find it really insane sometimes.
Well, no, I'm with you, but you get yourself, yeah, I think you can get yourself into a situation where it's your comfort zone and it's almost it becomes the norm.
Yeah, even though it's dysfunctional as can be, but but that's the momentum of karma, if you will. When we have this repetitive behavior and there's an energetic element in our psyche, the
Okay.
the likelihood of us perpetuating in the same direction becomes very high, and so
Well,
it's karma.
how do you stop it? So let's use the example of the lady who is being abused or whatever, and she goes to the counselor and she knows. Then how do you break it?
Well, it's at that point it'd be learning to love yourself because you would make decisions that honor you, that
Gotcha,
nurture you,
gotcha.
and
And who
maybe
cares
she
about the
doesn't.
other person at that point?
Well, what's curious is once you heal that from your psyche, the abuser will not even see you. It's like you become invisible. So that woman in her upbringing was told she's not worthy, was told she had no value, was
Right.
told, and then the karma of that manifested examples that showed her that,
Ah,
right? And
okay.
so, and her soul chose the whole damn rodeo. I mean, from the
Isn't that it?
beginning.
Doesn't that blow your mind?
Yeah, I mean, my soul chose to put me in this small town Mormon Twilight
Right,
episode,
right,
so
right,
I'd want to challenge every damn sentence I ever heard,
right.
and that's why my books are so unique, I think, in
Yeah.
that this free range uh, consciousness challenged every damn thing I was told. And I think that shows in my books.
Yeah, no, it does. So what are you doing today? What's going on? What's going on in your life? We got about 7 minutes till the end of the show. Tell me what's going on since I talked to you last. You got a new book coming or what?
Well, yes,
What are
I'm,
you doing?
I, um, I'm, I'm negotiating with my soul. I feel like my life is in transition,
Okay.
and my ego comes up with ideas of, well, okay, what I need to do is this, or I need to do is that. For example, public speaking has come into my psyche recently, and it's kind of
Hmm.
like write a book. The first time I'm like, I don't know about that, and and so what that actually looks like. At
Hmm.
first, I thought, okay, I'll join the speakers bureau and go talk to every rank and file on the planet, and my heart's like, no, 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 no,
No,
no,
yeah.
no, no, no. You need to go to venues that are anchored in your story, in your Kool-Aid, if you will, so
Hmm.
the audience is in harmony with
Right.
what you have to say.
That's
and
correct.
and my ego didn't, that wasn't obvious to my ego, so I feel like I'm morphing between a caterpillar and a butterfly over and over and over again, but
Hmm.
I feel like I'm at a pivot point, if you will, to a whole new paradigm of how I passionately express the compassion I have for humanity.
Yeah, as you say that, I'm thinking about why I did this show. It's the
Yeah.
same thing. I wrote my book, Wake Up, the Universe is Speaking to You. And I said everything I had to say and I told my story, but I just felt like it didn't get out there enough. And I really needed to talk
Yeah.
and tell people, hey, you guys, wake up, check this out. You know, you can
Yeah.
use this energy. It's however you choose. And there were so many different things like we've talked about today. And I feel the same way as you. You know, I need to get out and speak. And I get that. It's like coming from your soul. Your soul's like, talk about it. Talk about
That-
God. You know, we haven't talked so much about meditation. Are you a big meditator?
yes, indeed.
I thought
Um,
so.
I had 10 years of my life that was anchored in meditation.
Oh, wow.
And now I think it engulfed me, because I'll find myself saying a sentence, and halfway through the sentence will collapse. It's like there's no power to that sentence, Les. And I know the reason that exists, that measuring stick, if you will, that
Okay.
came out of meditation. That came out of learning how to be still.
I see. So as you go to speak, you realize you don't need to say the words. Is that what you're saying?
That the words don't honor me.
Gotcha. You
And
change your verbiage. Okay.
why
Okay.
would I say a sentence that doesn't
Didn't
honor
honor
me?
you. Right, right, right. Well, no, that's true because whatever you say and whatever you think creates your reality. So
That's your
that's exactly
wand.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I love it. That's so cool. I know. Yeah, because you say that. You say imagination make you also I wrote down a couple notes. You said imagination makes it happen and shift your ego into your heart. And that's the truth. I love that. And you also say slow your mind down. And that's not easy to do, but that is through meditation, isn't it?
Sure. And meditation, there's so many flavors of it. What caught my interest was no thoughts. Stop your thoughts.
That's hard.
At first, it's hard, but after a while, so, like
How do you do it? Tell us. We got like 3 minutes. Tell us how to do it.
you want to kick your ass. You want to kick your ass. Do this.
Okay.
Set the timer on your phone to 10 minutes.
Okay.
Create a ritual out of it. First thing in the morning, perhaps. You can go in the
Okay.
bathroom if you live in a busy household, whatever.
Yeah.
Start the timer, and every time a thought comes up, say thank you, like a
Okay.
period at the end of the sentence. The conversation's over.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. So you start the timer and you put the phone down, and you close your eyes, and it's like, well, this is stupid. And you say, thank you. Well, I need to get gas in the car. Thank you. Well, we're not getting anything done. Thank you. And what you're going to
Okay.
do is these subconscious thoughts that you were not aware of start to become conscious.
Okay.
You start to recognize this undercurrent of dialogue that your busy mind never would have recognized.
Okay.
And through that 10 minutes of over time, it'll get easier. And once you find a comfortable space with it, double the time to 20 minutes, and you'll kick your ass even
I
even
love
better.
this. I love it. Well, no, thank you. Because what I've been doing is when thoughts come into my head and they're not the thoughts that I want, I say an affirmation. That's what I've been doing because
Sure.
I'm like, no, that's not what I want. I'm healthy, wealthy, and wise. I have sparkling blue eyes. That's
But
one of my deals. You know, I'll
but
say
that
because it
keeps you in
rhymes.
mind. That keeps you in your mind because you're generating sentences.
So don't do that. Keep yourself.
Or I,
Got it. Got it.
I
Got it. Got it.
suggest no
Got it.
thought. No thought is extremely powerful because in truth, your essence is a field like light coming out of a light bulb. The
Right.
essence of you is a field of light.
Okay.
Fields don't need sentences. And so to discover this infinite well of love within you, it won't come through sentencing. It'll come from being still and experiencing the already present um, field of love that exists at the core of your being.
Got it. Wow, that is powerful. Thank you. We're to the end of our show. I'm going to do this, Les. This is awesome. I'm like so excited. All right.
Yeah.
You guys just try to get me and I don't answer. It's because I'm being quiet. Um, but Les, what do you want to leave us with today other than the learn to be still, learn to be the king of our own kingdom?
Well, when you get the courage to tune into the inspiration of your heart and your soul, and then get the focus of taking that inspiration and bringing it into form, your
Okay.
ego captures inspiration and creates the form expression of it.
Right.
If you learn how to do that, the, at some point your ego will surrender and say, well, damn, show me what my life can be. And when your ego surrenders to the will of your heart and your soul, the the immense joy, an ocean of joy within your being will flow out of you day in and day out.
Right. The
And it's,
worries will go away. You won't have any more concerns. You'll be
oh
at
my
peace.
God,
You'll be at
oh
peace.
my
Yeah.
God.
That's awesome. Hey, Les, thank you so much for being on my show today. I hope you'll come back and visit me again. You say you're working on maybe a new book?
Oh, certainly.
Okay.
I'll probably write 12, 15 books in this, more books in this lifetime.
That
So
sounds good.
yes,
That
it's,
sounds good.
yep,
You come back and see me again. Thank you.
yep.
All
Thank
right.
you.
All right. This is Nancy Yearout. We will see you next week on High Road to Humanity. Have a great week. Okay, Les, I think we're good.
What a fun episode. That was
Thank
delightful.
you. I know. Well, I learned a lot from your book. Thank you. You really helped me. I was like, all right, so I'm going to do this. I'm absolutely going to do it. So thank you very much.
My pleasure.
All right.
I'm glad it landed in your psyche.
Well, I always think highly of you because you were so wonderful on my very first show. So I'm really happy to have you back. So thank you and good luck and stay in touch with me. Okay.
Indeed. Thank
All
you.
right. Take
Take
care.
care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.